G'day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another cracking edition of Investing in the US, an Aussie's guide to US real estate. From Los Angeles, I'm your host, as always. Good as always to have you with us on the show. Now, as you know, it is my job to explore, dissect, and interview the cream of the crop when it comes to real estate, business, and entrepreneurship here in the United States, so you can all make the right investing decisions to create massive amounts of cash flow, which will hopefully lead to financial freedom and long-term wealth. As you know, I'm all about sharing the knowledge with my loyal listeners, and there's no BS on this show, just straight into the nuts and bolts. But knowledge without action means you're just a fence sitter. So be educated first and foremost. Tune into my podcast each and every week, but you also got to go out and take massive amounts of action. And hopefully my cracking guests on my show will inspire you to do so. If you do like this show, please give us a review on iTunes, and you can follow me on Facebook and Twitter by searching Reed Goossens. One last thing before we dive into today's show. If you are listening through your ear holes via iTunes, SoundCloud, or Stitcher, that's fantastic. But you can also find these shows up on my YouTube channel. So head over to reedgoossens.com, click on the video link, and it'll take you straight to the video recordings of these podcasts. You can see my ugly mug, but you can see the gorgeous faces of my guests. All right, guys, enough out of me. Let's get cracking and into today's show. Today on the show, I have the pleasure of speaking with Bruce Petersen. Bruce is a syndicator of large multifamily properties throughout Central Texas, totaling over 900 units. Bruce is a local and National Apartment Association award-winning operator, so really impressed to have him on the show today. But enough out of me. Let's get him out of here. G'day, Bruce. Welcome to the show. How you doing today, mate?
G'day, mate. I'm doing great. I'm learning lots of cool words from you. Kraken, man. Kraken's my jam. I love it. It's what's a Kraken deal? How you cracking? You know, it's a word that I love to use all the time. So, how are you cracking? I'm cracking great, dude. I'm always. I tell people all the time. Look, if I wake up in the morning and I'm not physically on fire, every day's a good day, man. It could be worse. So yeah, it's a good day.
Fantastic, man. Look, before we dive into the nuts and bolts of today's show, I always like to throw a bit of a doozy question at my guests. Who is Bruce Petersen?
Well, I'm a 49-year-old guy. Came from a very modest background, right? I'm one of those guys that grew up very, very poor for a stretch. We lived in government housing. Our monthly rent was $30.
Wow.
Came home from grocery shopping with my mom one day when I was 13 years old. The testosterone stuff, trying to figure out who you are as a person, as a man, as a human being. And there's Toys for Tots sitting on my doorstep. And that's when I realized, oh shit, I'm poor. And I didn't realize it to that point because I had a great mother. I never knew, It was pretty obvious when you step back and look at it, but I didn't know we were poor until that day. But, so came from a very humble background, barely got out of high school. We didn't do the 4.0, 3.0 thing back then. We were doing like true number grades. You're getting you graduated with a 72 average or 77. I got like a 72 average to squeak out of high school. Then I went to college because I'm supposed to go to college now, right? Well, that didn't work so well for me. I am not a student. I am not an academic, let's put it that way. I'm a lifelong learner, but college did not work for me. I'm a college dropout. I make a lot of money. That's not arrogance. It's just to say, you don't need a formal education, and I'm proof of that. Most of the most successful people I know don't have a formal education. So I dropped out of college, got a job as a stockbroker, and I was the guy that you would see like on the movie Boiler Room, Wall Street. I was that guy screaming at people on a phone that I didn't know. I hated that. I hated everything about that. Did well in it for about a year to a year and a half, but then we went to Desert Storm. The market seized up. And I'm pitching penny stocks is what I'm doing. So I had to get out of it. And I was glad to go because, again, I hated it. It was disgusting. I felt dirty every freaking day. So I fell out of that, and I went straight from six figures to I had to find a job. I wasn't making any money. I wasn't saving any of the money I was making. I was 23 years old. So I went to work for a bank, a local bank, as a drive-through teller, making $5 an hour, 20 hours a week.
Wow.
That was an adjustment, right? So then I've got a friend. He said, dude, I've got a way out of that for you. I can save you. I can rescue you. Like, oh, leave. Great. What do you have? His rescue was retail. I'm like, okay, yeah, I can go do that. I did that for 20 years.
Wow.
When I left finally, I was 42, I think, maybe 43 years old. I retired. I lived way below my means. I came from my upbringing, I think. And I made good money, and I knew how to invest it because I used to be a stockbroker. So at 43 years of age, that last year of working, I was working 100 to 110 hour weeks often. Hit a wall, walked away from it. So I'm now retired, paid cash. I was a Dave Ramsey disciple back then. Paid cash for the house, paid cash for the car, lived very cheaply. I didn't have a wife, didn't have a girlfriend, didn't have kids. It was just me. Called a buddy one day, said, "Hey man, let's go play golf." He's like, "Dude, I got to go to work." I'm like, "Oh, damn, what did I just do to myself? I got 50 years of this crap." So then I started looking around and I found a real estate mentor. And I'm telling you, dude, I've made some good money in my life. I've been successful in pretty much everything I've done. I've started 3 or 4 other companies. Nothing compares to this. It's a lot of work, but it's still the easiest thing I've ever done, the most rational thing I've ever done, the most lucrative thing I've ever done, and by far the most fun and rewarding thing I've ever done. So, again, we've won a couple of awards now for operating properties. We've done 5 or 6 deals now. We have our own management company. And so, yeah, we're just having a ball and enjoying life now.
Mate, that's an incredible introduction. I think you've taken me through the soup to nuts, right? And
I thought that's what you wanted to do.
No, that's incredible. I want to just, talk a little bit about that upbringing and how that's made you into the person you are today, because I think that's really important for a lot of people out there that, myself included. I didn't come from great means. I definitely wasn't in your boots, but I definitely was getting my first job when I was 13 years of age or 12 years of age. Straight down a cafe. Hey, can you give me $7 an hour or $6 an hour? So how did you make your first dollar?
Well, I was that kid. I've always had that gene in me. Now, I worked for other people for a long time, but while I was working for other people, I was always trying my own companies. But, I was a kid that had the lemonade stand. I had that all the time. I remember we used to dig through dumpsters. I was a military kid, so I basically would go to the local nightclubs and dig through their dumpsters and get all their disgustingly filled with cigarette butts and old flat hot beer. So we'd get the beer cans, crush them, take 10, 20 bags of cans down. We were doing that. I was selling baseball cards, not to like a Gary Vaynerchuk level, but I always had a little grind going as a kid. I remember when I was, again, about 13, maybe 14 years old, I opened up the paper one day and I was reading through the business section. I don't know anything about business. I didn't even really know what I'm reading, but there was an ad that caught my eye. And it talked about interest rate on a savings account compounded. And I was like, what does that mean? So I called the bank. I did. Whoever picked up the phone, they got to talk to this stupid 14-year-old kid that just called them. Said, hey, I see your ad. How does this work? I get 4% or 6%. And so it's always been in me my entire life. And it was good to finally do this full time.
That's awesome, man. And hey, I tell you what, the bank teller would have had a pretty big shock when you have 14-year-old kids. Like, shouldn't you be in school?
Yep.
So, mate, walk us through that, the retail part of your life. You briefly touched on it. What were you doing in the retail section to make you retire at 40 years of age? That's incredible.
Well, a lot of people don't realize that retail pays pretty well. Once you kind of climb the ladder a little bit, so I started, my first job was HEB, which is a local grocery store. I was a bagger. Then I got moved up to cashier. Then I kind of pulled out of retail for a long time. And then I came back at about 23, 24 years old. I came in as a department supervisor for a big box chain retailer. And over that 18-year span, I progressed. I was running stores for these major retailers, like Best Buy. Bed Bath & Beyond was the last job I had as a store manager in retail. I like to tell the story now. Anybody out there listening that knows me, you may differ with this, but this is exactly what happened. That I was kind of on the short list. I was probably the next to be given my own district, or on the very, very, very short list. And that's what I was getting from my boss. But again, I hit a wall. I was a store manager for years, and the 100 to 110 hour weeks, I was done. I just couldn't keep doing it. I was killing myself. I'm 5'9". Back then I was 240 pounds. Mm-hmm. Didn't have a wife, didn't have a girlfriend, how do you have a life working 110 hour weeks? So I had to quit to not kill myself. So I packed up all my crap in a car, put all my stuff in that was left that wouldn't fit in a car in a storage unit, and drove around the eastern half of the U.S. for a month to a month and a half by myself, just trying to clear my head, figure out, okay, I just kind of grew up overnight. I got to figure out what I want to do as an adult now. So yeah, and I found real estate. Yay.
Well, mate, that's the whole point of this show. But I do love talking to my guests about understanding what makes them tick, where they've come from, because that journey is really, really important for every single person who gets involved in real estate. No one just wakes up and thinks, I'm going to be involved in real estate and I know exactly what it means and I'm going to create all this amount of, wealth and long-term, cash flow and blah, blah, blah. So talk to me now. You've come from modest upbringing. You fell out of university. You were in the retail sector for a long period of time. You're 40-ish years of age. You stumble across real estate. Tell me about that first conversation where someone was like, you were like, aha, I get this. I understand what's going on and I need to now devote the rest of my life to, building my portfolio.
Well, so I didn't know anything about real estate. I knew that maybe that's a good thing to look into because you keep hearing about it. Everybody's doing it and doing well. So I started asking all my friends. Many of my friends were residential real estate agents. Like, do you know anybody that can teach me how to invest in real estate? No, nobody knew anybody. I said, look, I'll pay them. I'll pay somebody to kind of mentor me through this process. I'll pay people. Nobody knew anybody. So I just sat down at the computer one day and I typed in, what did I type in? Real estate mentor Central Texas, my local market. And, a few people came up. I started digging through some of those results and I found a group that taught me exactly how to do it. Now I paid for that education, but they taught me exactly how to do what I do now. So that's kind of how I found it. Bought my first property in 2012, a 48-unit property. And again, it's just been the best thing I've ever done. That first property I sold after 2 years and 4 months with 14 other partners. And we made roughly 300% in 2 years and 4 months. So, wow. I mean, how do you not buy into this and, go all in?
That's incredible. So with this first deal, were you leading it? You said you had some other investors in there, or is it just more get your feet wet involved in some syndication?
Well, I've always been a syndicator. Even that very first deal with no experience, no track record, nothing. I was a syndicator. So that first deal, 48 units, I bought it for $1.6 million. I had to raise about $575. I put $115,000 of my own dollars into that first deal. So I had 20% of the deal. And then I went out and raised the rest of the money by just networking with people. I put together a group that we met at a local Starbucks every Wednesday. There was just me and one other guy at the beginning, but now that thing is still going strong 6 years later, 7 years later. That mailing list is now 300-400 people. Wow. We put 20 to 40 each time we do it. But that's where my first group of investors came from. We got to know each other on a very deeply personal level. We would party together. We would boat together. We would barbecue together. And they got to where they knew and liked and trusted me. So they were willing to, take a chance on a guy with no track record. And it worked out spectacularly well for us.
So did you do that meetup group at Starbucks prior to having that deal under contract?
Oh, absolutely. Probably 9 months before I had it. Well, 6 months before contract and about 9 months before close.
So did you know to do that? Or was it just like, hey, I needed to create this platform for other like-minded individuals? Did anyone tell you to go out and do that? Or you just sort of, screw it, I'm going to do it?
Yeah, nobody told me what it was. There was another guy that joined that lived kind of close to me. He joined that same group that taught us how to do it, but their office locally was in San Antonio. We live in Austin. I'm retired. He's not. So I thought, you know what? I go to all their events in San Antonio once or twice a week sometimes. I can bring back knowledge that I learned to VJ, my friend. And so just the two of us got together. And as we would get out and meet people and interact with other people, we would tell people that, hey, if you're interested in Austin, it's just two of us. We get together, we shoot the shit about real estate. What are we learning? What are we hearing? And that just grew and grew. We outgrew Starbucks by a lot. We were not very welcome there anymore because we took over the entire damn place. But that's all it was. It was a need. I felt the need to be engaged. I didn't want to learn stuff, right? You hear this from everybody. I didn't want to learn stuff and then not be surrounded with like-minded people that were positive and upbeat about what they were doing because I would lose steam. And I knew that. So I had to find a way to keep engaged, and I got to keep VJ engaged. And it's just something we felt we needed to do.
It's so awesome because a lot of people probably listening out here don't understand the power of creating that platform, right? To help you create that email list, the 300-400 email list. And I'm going to dive a little bit more into that because I really do like this topic. From a processes standpoint, you just did it, right? You said, fuck it. Like, let's just go out and do it. But you knew it was a means to an end to get you that. What's the worst thing that can happen? We start this thing, it fails. Okay. so what? I met a handful of people. It failed, but now looking back, you would have thought, geez, what a great thing to have done to get me on this journey, to have the network to then go and raise, what do you say, $1 million for your first deal.
Right. And see, and that's the thing. It's just get off your ass. Everybody, a lot of my friends are engineer brains, right? They're B personality, spreadsheet jockeys.
That's me.
Well, but I've got that, but I've got enough A. At some point, you got to get out of your fucking spreadsheet. You got to go do it. Like you said, what's the worst that's going to happen? It's not going to make me live under a bridge if I don't have this thing work out. Just go out and start doing stuff. Get Grant Cardone, right? Hyperactive. Get out there and just do stuff. Some things are going to work. Some things are not going to work. But do you just want to stay stagnant your whole life? Go to a job you hate? I've got friends that are nauseated to go to their jobs. And one guy, it very well may cost him his family. Wow. But he can't break away emotionally. He's scared. I get people, oh, but I need insurance. Fuck you. Come on. You need insurance.
Have you read the 4-Hour Work Week? He lays it out for you how to do it.
Yeah.
No, mate, but I love it. And I love the fact that you backed yourself. I think that's the biggest thing. And that's what people struggle with, is backing themselves, right? Your buddy who's going to, maybe, hope he doesn't lose his family, but he's afraid to back himself. And that's, it takes one step in the right direction. And it's not about taking the 20 steps to get to your goal. It's about taking one. And that one step may be just starting a meetup group. It might be just picking up the phone and, calling someone who knows a little bit about real estate or about business investing and just saying, look, you know what? I need some help. I need to understand. You asked the people you're calling brokers to say, hey, who can teach me? I'm going to pay them. And it took you a little while to find it, but you finally, you found your tribe. So awesome stuff. Now tell me, you've now scaled this thing. It's now sounds like, well, I'm going to let you explain, but where has it come from since 2012, between 2012 and 2017? What have you created? And I want to learn a little bit more about that.
All right. So 2012 is when I bought my first one, sold it the beginning of 2015. So 2 years and 4 months later, I sold it. I took a break from working on real estate and I started teaching others. The company that taught me, I went back and I started giving back. They paid me a little salary. It wasn't about the salary though. I got to give back. I got to help other people that were learning the journey and I could help teach them my journey. So I did that for about a year to a year and a half. So I put all my stuff on hold. So then I came out of that probably around the same time as I sold that first property. I'm thinking maybe 2015. And then I started concentrating on my own stuff. So I bought a 120 unit in North Austin in December of 2015. I bought a 256 unit in San Antonio in August of 2016. And then this year so far, I bought a 192 in Austin in May. And we just closed on a 292 unit 2 weeks ago in San Antonio. So
crushing it
pretty quickly. If again, you got a network, right? You have to be able to raise capital. You have to have a personality that people like and trust. But yeah, I mean, you get to the bigger and bigger and bigger you get, the easier and easier this stuff gets. That 48 unit property, I had part-time staff. It's hard to find part-time staff. Oh yeah, I want to work for you, Mr. Petersen, for part-time. No, you don't. You can't find a full-time job. When you do find a full-time job, your ass is gone. So it's continual turnover. You get to a 300 unit property like we are now. My God, I've got 7, 8 people running around a property.
Right.
And so again, it becomes easier. We've got corporate staff now. We've got an ops director. We're hiring a bookkeeper. So the bigger this gets, counterintuitively, it gets tremendously easier. And we're even a partner in a 250 unit in Bryan. So we're involved in a little over about 1,100 units right now.
Fantastic. That's really incredible. The 120 unit in Austin, that would have been a bloody a good little catch. Like Austin is just on fire. And so 2 years ago, was it what, Class C, Class B? What did you pick up?
It's probably a C- in a very C- to D neighborhood. But no, we've done fantastically well with that. Within the first 12 months, we raised rents about $200 to $225 a unit.
Wow.
So yeah, we've done well with that. So we bought a 192 unit right around the corner from that property a few months back. We're doing really, really well with that. So yeah, Austin's been crazy good for us. A lot of people think, oh, Austin's too expensive. Well, it's expensive because the rents are higher. It's a correlation. The higher the rents are, the more the property's going to cost you. So in a really kind of working class, kind of rougher neighborhood, I just spent $100,000 a door in Austin. in San Antonio, a tremendously better property in a much better neighborhood, I pay 80 a door for, but they will have the same return roughly.
Right. Yeah, and that's interesting you say that, because let's dive a little bit more into that. So paying $100,000 a door, I take it your entry cap is obviously a lot lower, right? Than because your NOI. But what do you like to look at, like year 2 cap rate or year 3 cap rate once you're stabilized, to know that, okay, this is where I'm going to get to? I might be picking it up at a 5 or a 5.25, but I know that in the next 2 years, I'm going to increase that NOI to a stabilized NOI. It's going to be closer to 6 or 6.5. And that gives me, that helps me. It helps sell get investors excited about the deal.
Yeah. Okay. So a couple of things. First of all, I'm still sourcing deals at 6 to 6.25 all day long.
Okay. Right.
That turns into a 7 to a 9% cash on cash return for my investors, but I'm buying stabilized assets. So I'm not buying a lot of turnaround projects. Most of them have been picked over in this market. So, my entry cap is going to be about a 6 to a 6.25. I'm starting to hedge, or, go away from assuming 2, 3, 4 years down the road, it's going to be the same 6.25 cap. I can't assume that, right? They're going to regress, or they're going to rise back to historical average, I'm sure. So what I do with all my investors now, say, look, this is not a candidate for a cash out refi or a supplemental loan where I can return 100% of your money, still own the property, still cash flow, right? That's what we're all trying to do.
Right.
But when I'm buying stabilized assets and I assume the cap rates are going to start rising within the next 1 to 3 years, probably, we're buying things for cash flow, and that's it. If we do have this big bump on the back end with some kind of a capital event where we sell, that's great. But I just tell all of them up front, this is not a good candidate for a 1031 exchange, and this is probably not going to be suitable for a cash out refi. But I'm totally transparent about that stuff.
Right. And if it happens, it's a bit of a bonus and extra juice, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah. Cool, man. So tell me about your systems you set up now. You've got so many units. You've got your own in-house property management. That's incredible. What else have you brought in-house that has started to help you create the machine that is, your company, and help you become more efficient, and then obviously reduce expenses to help the bottom line, right? To help your investors return.
Right. So some of it just comes with the scale, right? So the more and more people we have, the cheaper and cheaper insurance gets. Right after we bought our second property, that's when we brought in our first corporate employee. We've got an ops director. He is my guy behind the scenes, right? He is the wizard behind the curtain, that he's working on contracts, renegotiating, rebidding things, process, procedure, systemizing things. He's made a massive difference in our world, huge, because he's taken a lot of the tedium off of our plates, mine and my wife. My wife is a real estate CPA with a background in tax returns and audits of apartment complexes. So I met her in real estate. And the funny thing is, I tell everybody that I immediately dropped on one knee and said, come on, you got to marry me, right? This is too perfect. But we got married, a couple of years after. I proposed to her in front of a room of 200 people. So that was
wow.
But so she is the bookkeeper side of it. We're interviewing a bookkeeper right now that will take all that off of her plate. I still work in the role of regional manager, right? So I'm still the one walking around to every property once or twice a month, checking in with them, big picture stuff, leading the team on our next property. That will be the next hire, is that person. But it's just all the specialization that you get, the bigger you get, that just changes your life completely.
I was saying to my partner the other day, I get excited about the other legs on the table, and I think of my investing company, let's call it, as a table. One leg is acquisitions. I love acquiring deals. It's great. It's fantastic. I love it. But you're not always going to be acquiring deals, right? You know, in 5-10 years time, it may not happen. But having other legs, like where you could go and be, your volume's so large, you could go direct to China and start bringing in, plumbing fixtures and, different things to fit out your 1,000 units that you own. That's a business in itself. And it's just this ecosystem that grows around the portfolio. How are you looking forward to, in the next 3 to 4 years to build that, if you are thinking of building that out, or what systems are you doing to help that ecosystem to make your overall company more stable?
Well, so, a key part of that is we just kind of I started a construction company. I'm
Right.
tired of dealing with GCs
Yep.
that very often are completely unreliable. I've had one actually tell me to my face, well, he missed his deadline by 3 times over. And I talked to him at the end on the final walkthrough, and I said, okay, look, let's have a conversation. One of two things happened. Either you lied to me or you're completely incompetent. Which was it? And he goes, honest. He said, I lied to you. I said, why the fuck did you lie to me? He said, because if I didn't lie to you and give you an unrealistic timeline, I would have never gotten your job because everybody's lying. I'm like, oh yeah, thank you. I never used him again.
Right.
So it's just hard to get good GCs that will actually hit their deadlines, hit their budgets. Well, I've never had a budget problem, right? I protect myself on that stuff. But I thought, you know what? I can bring this in-house, create my own construction company. Now I'm in charge of everything from beginning to end. And instead of paying a GC anywhere from 20 to 30% overhead, I will only charge 15% because I'm still doing the work that the GCs are doing. So I need to be compensated for that. But now I can save my partnership, on $1 million rehab, instead of say 30%, I'm going to charge 15%. That's a massive savings for my partnership. So that's kind of one of the things that's kind of opened up for us. At some point when we get to, 4, 5, 6,000 units, I want to hire a CEO for this company. I really do, go off and do the next thing. I love everything about real estate, but I want to own a baseball team, right? I want to own a AA or a AAA baseball team. So this is kind of a stepping stone. I don't think I'll ever walk away from it because we love it so much. But, I've got other things. So we will bring other people in. I've got a saying, you have to let go to grow, or to grow, you have to let go, right? Because I've had so many people that are trying to do what I do, but they can't let go, right? Well, they're not going to do it as good as me. Okay, understand. It's your company. It's your business. They're never going to care as much as you. Understand. Deal with it. Accept it. But you have to find somebody that's at least competent enough to run a good organization for you. They may not have checked the box the way you would have checked that fucking box, but you know what? You got to let go or you're going to get stuck, right? You're self-employed at that point, and you can't grow an organization that way. So, I believe firmly you got to hire people smarter than you in respective disciplines, self-aware, right? I know exactly what my strengths are. I'm really good at the forward-facing with the investors, the networking, and the acquisitions, all the monotonous stuff, the stuff behind the curtain. I'm not good at that stuff. So I hire smarter people than me and let them do their job.
Right. No, I think you've hit on some great points. And the first one I want to hit on, I've got a lot of experience in ground up construction. It's the dance, isn't it? They over promise and under deliver. It's always a dance. I think your GC is incredibly correct that he wouldn't have got your business if he hadn't quoted you an unrealistic timeline, right? And then just kept pushing it and kept pushing it and kept pushing it, but still all the while having his hand out for extra GCs and general conditions, right? And general requirements. So it's all about, it's a whole nother show about construction management, but it's interesting that you've had those pain points and now you're bringing it in-house. On the other hand, that the letting go to grow, I think that's really important because a lot of people, even myself included, I'm an engineer. I know that someone can't do it as good as I can. However, if they can get it to 90% and I can just got to take it that extra 10%, that's 90% of my time is freed up to do something else like acquisitions or go out and have a dinner with an investor. So that's how I think of it. And other people, I definitely pick up mistakes of my employees, or my virtual assistants that I've got, but they've done such a great job. They've taken it so far that I don't need to deal with all the monotonous crap and I can just come and tweak it at the end and, okay, this is a good decision. Let's move forward. So biggest piece of advice you could give to someone who is getting started in the syndication business, they want to get started to be you, right? To be Bruce, to be the man.
I don't know anybody wants to be me.
You want to own a baseball team, man. What is your biggest piece of advice?
It's something we hit on earlier. You just got to move. Quit over-analyzing everything. There's never going to be a perfect deal. There's never going to be a perfect time. That first deal I bought, I made 300% on. I, honest to God, thought it was fully stabilized and it was just going to return a nice stream of cash flow each year. And that was it. Well, that base hit that I thought I got turned into a home run. If I hadn't taken the base hit that had a little bit of wart here and there and some hair on it, I would have never had that happen. You've got to get out of your own way. That's the biggest thing. People are in their own way. They're their own worst enemy. They torpedo all their best ideas because it's got to be perfect, or it's not. Again, that spreadsheet person. I've got a lot of engineer friends. They have to contingency plan everything. Now, in that world, okay, I got to contingency plan everything because if I don't, somebody could literally burn up, right? That's not going to happen here, right? So you can't have a contingency for everything. You have to trust your competence. But now, having said that, not everybody can do what we do. Right. They can't. A lot of people hear people like us talk and go, hell, I can do that. I understand spreadsheets and formulas. I know what NOI is and how to get. Yeah, dude, there's so much more to it than that. Can you hire and fire people if you're going to self-manage? Even if you're not going to self-manage, can you hire and fire a management company? Can you hold them accountable? As a syndicator, this is the one I like to try to drive home to people. If you're not a leader, you're not going to be able to have these frank conversations. Can you fire an investor? Like, well, what? And fire an investor? Yes. If you aren't fiercely protective over your partnership and you let the wrong personalities in, one person can tank your whole deal because they're going to rally everybody against you. They will be a pain in your ass. They will be tapping you on the shoulder every 2 seconds. Why did you paint that wall purple? Why is the toilet not bone color instead of white? You have to be protective of that. If you start getting into some conversations with a person and you think, oh yeah, I've got this deal, I'd like to show it to you. And then you get deeper into them and you figure, oh, dude, this is not a good fit. You have to fire them. Yep. You have to. Yep. Look, this is not a good fit. I'm so sorry. There are plenty of deals out there. I can, introduce you to other people. This is not going to work for the two of us. So you got to let them go.
Yeah, I think it's really important to make sure it's a two-way street, right? When everyone gets started, they love to hear that. Oh, I'm potentially going to invest $50K or $100,000. And everyone, every first indicator is like, wow, yes, I've got my first. But as you said, it's a two-way. It needs to be a two-way street. You need the two sides of every coin, and you need to just make sure that you can work together. So I completely hear you on that. If someone is asking you about that, I will add that. Yeah, they shouldn't. If they're an investor and then an LP investor and they're worrying about the color of the toilet, then they've got too much time in their hands.
Oh, absolutely. So yeah, it's a courtship, right? You're dating. They got to like and trust you, but I got to like and trust you just like they have to like and trust me. And if I can feel that they don't like and trust me, they don't get to invest, right? Mm-hmm. If I don't like and trust them, of course, that's a no-brainer. But if I like them, but I don't think they like me, I got to have that frank, professional, tactful conversation that, man, this is not a good fit, and you got to move on.
Yep, I can completely agree. And at the end of the day, you're the syndicator, right? They're investing in you because you know what you're doing, right? And it's your role and it's your business to make sure you instill confidence in your investors that they're like, hey, what, Bruce has got his shit together and he's going to crush it, and that's all you got to do at the end of the day, right? And crushing it, but he's going to do a really good job and he's going to bend over backwards and work hard for me and he'll work hard for my dollars.
Right. So, and all that's covered in all of our documents, our private placement memorandum, our company agreement. It's all spelled out as to what they have a say in, which is kind of nothing, right? To your point, look, if you want to be involved like that, well, go do your own deal.
Right.
You're investing with me because of my track record, my experience, but also because you just don't want to deal with the day-to-day. So don't start trying to interject the day-to-day, right? Yep. That's not your role. You have no say in operations at all, which is not harsh. Go invest in a REIT and try to tell them what color to, put a toilet in. It just doesn't happen, right? We all get to where we're pretty good friends, but I got to know my role. They have to know their role.
100% agree. Bruce, man, I want to be conscious of your time, but I do like asking my investors and my guests on my show to give me their top 5 investing tips. You ready to get into it?
I am.
All right, mate. What's the daily habit you practice to keep on track towards your goals?
First thing I wake up, I'm not a super early riser, but I'm usually up by 7 or 7:30. I get a cup of coffee and then I come straight into the office. I office out of the home part of the time. And I start going over emails that have come in over the evening, check up on all my social stuff, and then I'll check in on every property's P&L. I look at it every single day. Wow. Right? I look at, what kind of move outs, what kind of move ins, that kind of stuff, just keeping a big picture eye on everything. And then I try to have one very uplifting, reaffirming podcast that I listen to. I try to get all that stuff knocked out by 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, and then I'm out. Then I'm out visiting a property. Or you mentioned this before, a big part of my day is I'm meeting with other investors. I'm meeting with other people trying to do what I'm doing, right? I give to people all the time because I do believe in karma to a degree that it'll come back to me. I don't
100%.
need money from
100%.
all these things. It's just, I want to get out and share information. So that's what, walk in other deals. So I'm always out there doing that stuff for the rest of the day.
Love it, man. With you reviewing your P&L, are you getting live updates from your property management, or what are you looking at to look at that sort of stuff? That sort of live.
Remember, we self-manage. We don't.
Oh, that's right. Yep.
So I have complete visibility. I can touch and fix everything. I'm an admin within the software, so it's not just my wife.
Mm-hmm.
So I have admin capabilities, and I know accounting. So
yep.
If I'm going to make a change, I always go to my wife to make sure I don't screw it all up. But yeah, I'm always looking at that stuff because I like, the B personality engineer brain in me. I'm always data mining. Mm-hmm. Why can't we do this cheaper? Why can't we make more money? Why don't we offer that new revenue stream that I know people are willing to pay for?
Right.
That's what I'm doing.
Great. Love it. Mate, who is the most influential person in your career to date?
Well, there's a friend here. His name is Terry. Probably, honestly, him. We have a different approach to this. We really do. He's more of a control enthusiast, as I like to joke with him about. But he's kind of the guy. He's not part of the group that taught me how to do that, but he was one that went to that group to learn himself. And he's in Austin. So we would go have lunch quite often. So I got a lot of knowledge from him. He was very giving of his time. Super great guy. He's also a multiple award winner within this space. So, I would say Terry. I'd say my parents, of course, that's the easy answer, but they had nothing to do with what I'm doing now. What I tell people is they mentored me on how to not end up dead, right?
Right.
I'm alive. I'm a good person, but they didn't teach me anything in business. So as it pertains to business, yeah, that probably my friend Terry.
Nice, man. Nice. Before we do dive into that second last question, I want to just quickly touch on your awards, man. And congratulations. When did you get them? What'd you do? How'd you get them? All that sort of stuff. It's been awesome, or what?
No, it's all my wife. The awesomeness comes from my wife. But no, so in 2016, for the 120 unit property in Austin that we bought, what we love to have community building exercises and events. Like if they feel part of a community, not just a number in a complex, they're less likely to leave, right? We all know you're going to make more money if they don't leave. Right. Having people leave is very expensive. So what we did the first year we owned this new property in Austin, we reached out to all the area elementaries and middle schools. Said, what are your school supply lists for this upcoming year? And we got it from everybody. It's broken down by grade. On this 120 unit property, we have 83 children that live there. What we did is we took these lists and we went out and bought one backpack for every child on the property. I'm going to tear up if I'm not careful because this is the good stuff for me. It really is.
Right.
And then we got every single last, even down to the wet wipes or, all that stuff, the Purell that they all want now. We bought all that stuff and we put it in a bag by grade, and we set up in a vacant unit. They walked in the front. We had pizza there for them, so they'd stop and get some pizza for them and their family. Then they go to the first table. The first table was the littlest kids got first pick of their backpack. So we had boy theme, we had girl theme. The little girls, the little boys, they would just be lit up, the biggest smile in the world because they have their own little backpack now. Then they walk into the other room, and my 20-year-old autistic daughter is in the other room
It's all right. Keep going, man.
Giving out stuff to these little kids. What grade are you in? And they would tell them, and she would hand it to them. So now my autistic daughter's involved, and she's having a blast. She's got a big smile on her face. They get their stuff. They walk out. And the big thing for us is not just it was fun to do. Many of these people in these very working class neighborhoods, they cannot afford this stuff. It's $20 to $25. They don't have that money. Right. So we had one teacher come up to my wife and daughter one time. We went and wiped out every backpack off the shelf at Walmart. She goes, "You're obviously doing something here." And they explained what they were doing. And she teared up. She said, "This is huge because when you don't do things like this, people don't do it. I do it because these kids come into my class, they don't have their stuff. They're embarrassed. They're behind everybody else because they don't have the stuff. So it comes out of my pocket. I don't make a lot of money." So that right there, that went very far in getting us Independent Rental Owner of the Year for Austin for 2016. And then that and other things, the profitability of the property, the condition of the property. We also won the National Apartment Association's Independent Rental Owner of the Year. So
That's
they told us
fantastic,
basically
man.
we were the best at what we did in the nation. So that was crazy rewarding.
That's awesome, dude. That's honestly big pat on the back. And I think doing those little things, any people who are listening to this, take note of this, because a big part of what people look at the profit, people look at, you're talking about the B part of the brain, they look at the underwriting, how are you going to do this, what's the revenue stream, blah, blah. It's all important. It's all very, very important. But having a community, and as you said, having a person who wants to live there longer, who's going to take better care of your unit, you're not going to trash the crap out of it,
Right.
and they're going to spread the word. You're going to have a lineup who want to move in there, right? So it's just, it all helps. It all helps. So it's well done.
Right, and it doesn't have to be that big a deal. On one of our really nice properties in San Antonio, last month we had a huge bash. We had food trucks come out. We had a DJ. We had a photo booth. We had 130 to 150 of the residents come out and take part in that. So they had a ball. But the marketing brain in me, we parked the food trucks in front, not on the property, but out in front. So as everybody drives around, this neighborhood is full of apartment complexes. There's probably 10 apartment complexes within a half mile of me. But now all the other residents saw, look how much fun they're having. My guys don't do this for me at this property. So we seized upon that too. So now we've got a lot of word spreading around.
Fantastic. That's awesome. I think that's we'll be definitely doing that on our next 192 unit. Mate, what has been the biggest failure in your career, and what did you learn from that failure?
Okay. Well, okay, you said career. I'm going to go a different direction. It's not this career. It was in a career, right? I'm in Central Texas,
right.
The oil boom, right?
Mm-hmm.
That hit, the first half of the of this decade. It blew up in South Texas. So I thought, oh, I'm brilliant. I can make money on this too. So I started an oil services company. And so what we would do is myself and my partner, we had equipment that we would lease out to all these different well sites, light towers, like you see on the side of a highway when they're doing work at night, generators, forklifts, man tents, trailers for like a guard shack, all that stuff. We would provide that stuff to them, but we would also service it. Now they can go to all these different rental companies and just rent it, grab it and take it over and use it and then take it back when you're done. Well, we would actually get it, deliver it to you, remove it when you're done with it. We would service it while it was out there. We would keep it filled with gas ourselves. So we were doing that. We were doing really, really, really well. And then OPEC and the Saudis apparently decided to try to tank us, right, as a nation. And that all dried up. So we lost $400,000 in the oil industry. That was my biggest failure. And I don't mean to sound flippant or arrogant about this, but we've not had a failure in multifamily. We really haven't. I'm not saying we won't, right? You can have a failure in any and everything you do. This is probably the safest industry I've found, but things can still happen in this industry. But so far, so good. We're very good at what we do. We haven't had those stumbles, but that one in the oil industry, it's part of that pick yourself back up, keep moving. Then we went into real estate and we've done really well.
Nice, man. Well, that's a really important thing that you moved on. You got back on the horse. You understood your failures, and you're able to look at risk in a different way. Probably, moving into real estate and multifamily into a sector that maybe doesn't have as much impact from outside forces. So well done. Look, mate, I want to wrap up the show by thanking you so much. But the last question I do have for you is, where can people reach you if they want to learn a little bit more about you? They want to check out your website. They want to maybe come to one of your awesome food truck events. One of your properties.
That's for my residents. Move on site, dude. You're welcome to come to any of them. All right. So my email, bruce@apt-gui.com. So it's bruce@apartmentguy.com. We're revamping my website, the apartmentguy.com website. So that's not up and running right now, but that will be apartment-guy.com. But it's down for rehab, I guess you'd say. And then we have our own podcast, me and a buddy. We've started our own podcast, so you can find that one at apartmentinvestorpodcast.com. We had our second episode aired today. It uploaded to iTunes, and we're doing kind of a lot of what you're doing. We're actually trying to give nut and bolt advice and actionable things. This is how we do what we do. This is how we find it. This is how we negotiate it. This is how we keep expenses in check. This is how we raise revenues. So we go into everything as far as exactly how we do what we do.
Oh man, that's awesome. I think that you're on a really great path towards creating a great ecosystem outside of your business to keep attracting more and more people to what you do. You seem like a really awesome, down to earth guy. So, man, I appreciate you for coming on the show today. Thanks for dropping by, and we'll enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll catch up soon. Yeah.
Man, thank you so much for having me on. This was a blast.
My pleasure. I think the three biggest things, the biggest takeaways that I got away from today's show was you got to let go to grow, quit overanalyzing, and get out of your own way. So if you do have any questions for Bruce, remember, please jump on my website at readgoossens.com/podcast, where all the show notes will be. And I thank you again for taking some time out of your day to tune in to continue to grow your investing IQ, because that's what we're all about here on this show. And we're going to do this all again next week. So take care, be safe, and remember, happy investing.